Hey everyone. It's the morning of December 31st, 2018, and got up early to do some video editing. Maya is still asleep. Our cat, Rosie, is sleeping with her. Anyway, I got my coffee, sat down, opened up Adobe Premiere, but then suddenly my mind kind of started wandering, and I started reflecting a little bit upon this year and the things that have happened and what it means for Maya and myself moving forward. And I thought I'd share it with you because, hey, that's what these YouTube channels are for, right? Anyway, back in January 2018, we were living in Riverside, California. We were enjoying life. We enjoyed the sunshine, the warmth, the palm trees, the flowers, the multitude of things to do. But then February, my mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. In April, she passed away. Then, 2 months later, in June, my father followed her. He passed away. So in the span of 2 months, I lost both my mother and my father. I was confronted with a world that I had never before had to think about, and that was one without them in it. It was hard. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, knocked off my feet, kind of lost my way a little bit. I think it's probably natural, I suppose, right? In that mindset, I was feeling homesick. I was from Washington State, and we'd moved to California to actually be closer to my parents. They were both in Arizona. So since they'd both passed, I started feeling homesick, and I started thinking, it might not be a bad idea to return home. I accepted a position in Port Angeles, Washington, in July, and we moved up to Port Angeles in August. Port Angeles is beautiful. I highly recommend you pay it a visit. It's right on the Strait of Juan de Fuca on the Olympic Peninsula, Washington State. I'll show you a map, include that here, so maybe you can get an idea where it is. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours ferry ride and drive from Seattle. Again, the nature is beautiful. You got water, you got the mountains, fresh air, it's peaceful. I'm sure you'll see all of this in future drone videos that I'll upload, but I soon realized that it was not the right decision to come here. We actually enjoyed California. Probably what I should have done is just take a month off to kind of grieve, and give it some thought, but made a rash decision, and so here we are. But that's okay. There are worse places to be. But then in November, we took our trip to Guadalajara and Ajijic, Mexico. This was a trip that we had planned months in advance before we learned my mother's diagnosis. And in fact, what happened was I got really cheap tickets through Scott's Cheap Flights. Hey, shout out. Anyway, we got cheap tickets from Los Angeles to Guadalajara. So everything had been booked and planned. Hotels, reservations, everything months and months in advance. We took the trip to Mexico, and it rekindled something inside of me. A little bit about myself. I lived in Asia for 17 years. I lived in South Korea for 15 years, and I lived in Vietnam for 2 years. And in fact, Maya was born in Hanoi, Vietnam. And we returned to the United States in late October, early November 2012. When we went to Mexico, it was the first time since we returned to the U.S. that we actually went outside of the U.S. I hadn't even realized it until we were sitting at a cafe or at a restaurant by a plaza in Mexico and experiencing the different culture and the different sights and sounds and smells and activities. And it's like, hey, I remember what I enjoyed about living abroad. So that light bulb came on again. That fire got rekindled. I started thinking about that. So we came back, and to be honest, this is kind of when it's confirmed to me that I wish I'd stayed in California, because when we came back, I was wishing that we were getting off the plane in Los Angeles and just driving back to Riverside. instead of flying all the way through to Seattle and then coming back to Port Angeles. And Port Angeles people, I'm sorry, nothing personal. It's a great city. It's a great town. It's just not a city, and I'm more of a city person. Anyway, so we got the travel bug, and so we spent a weekend recently in Victoria, BC, Canada. You can take the ferry from Port Angeles, about an hour and a half to Victoria, and it further confirmed that we just got the travel bug. Just as importantly, I noticed that Maya has it in her DNA too. She came alive when we were in Mexico. She really enjoyed it. I was worried how she would receive it. I didn't know if she'd be kind of put off by things being a bit different, not understanding the language. But no, she loved it. So the last few days, actually honestly, if I tell the truth, last few months, but especially the last few days, I've been thinking about this year, as we wrap it up, the effect that the events have had on me and my outlook moving forward, and also thinking about 2019 and what's in store. This is going to come as a bit of a shock, probably maybe to some of my family members, but we're thinking very seriously about moving back to Vietnam. I've discussed it with Maya. She's excited about the idea. For her, I've showed her some videos of water parks in Vietnam, and she was sold. That's all she really needs, as long as there's water parks. But I think it would be a good experience for her. She's half Vietnamese, so I'd like her to be able to rediscover that part of herself. It would give us the opportunity to spend more time together, as the cost of living is so much cheaper there. So we could afford to have a housekeeper a couple days a week, which would free me up to spend more time with her, to go out and do fun things. We could eat outside every day because it's so much cheaper, and it would be healthier because we'd be eating a lot more vegetables and fresh foods. Travel is so much cheaper there. We could explore a lot of different countries in Southeast Asia and even Northeast Asia. I could take her to Korea and show her where my second home is, and tell her all about that. I think it would afford us the opportunity for a much more exciting life. The trade-off is that it definitely is less secure. Staying in the United States would offer greater security, particularly for me. In regards to retirement, I would be sacrificing that. I would have to save more. I'd have to hustle a little more, but it's a lot easier to hustle over there. Again, I have 17 years in Asia, so I kind of know my way about there. It can be done, but I'm putting myself out on a limb a little bit. I understand that, but one thing that this year has taught me is that there's no guarantees in the future. I could just kind of stay here in the U.S. for another 10, 15 years and, save for retirement. And then I always plan to move abroad afterwards, but who knows if I'm going to have my mental faculties at that point? Who knows if I'm going to have my health at that point? And more importantly, Maya won't be around at that point. She'll be off. She'll be an adult. She'll be living her life. So I want to experience these things with her while she's young, because we'll never get that back. So anyway, to family members and friends who might disagree with this thought, let me just say, number one, I'm not sure yet. 90% sure. It hasn't been decided for certain. But if you disagree with it and you want to tell me so, please, let's do this privately. Let's talk offline. Don't leave them in the comments on YouTube. Others, you can say whichever you want. I guess that's what it's all about at YouTube. But so comment away. But family members, let's talk about it on the phone or through private messages. Oh, one more thing to friends and family. If we're overseas, Maya and I, and Rosie, our cat, we'd actually have more time to spend with you, as odd as it sounds. But, we have time to take off. I could take vacation anytime I want, and we could come back to the States for a month at a time. And right now, we hardly see each other at all. So it might seem like we're far away, but in many respects, we end up being closer. So keep that in mind. Final words. One of the main reasons for coming back to the United States, there were a few reasons for coming back to the United States in 2012. I wanted Maya to be able to learn a little bit about her American side and what that meant. I wanted her to be able to go to an American school for a while, get a start on an American education. But most importantly, I wanted her to be able to come back and spend some time with her grandparents so that she could know them. And just as importantly, so that they could spend time with her and get to know her a little bit. And they did. They got to see her quite a bit. She will always remember them. And so it made it very much worth it to come back to the U.S., even though I've always been a person with wanderlust. But now I think it might be time to head back overseas. So we'll see. The next few months will be time to contemplate it further and to start making preparations one way or the other. But I think that's what's going to happen. That'll make for some great YouTube content. So, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Last but not least, Mom, Dad, and my brother Mike, I miss you. I love you forever. And I hope you're at peace. And we'll try to make you proud. Bye. Happy New Year.